Hey everyone, welcome to another locker room talk of the Dana and Joe Sports Show. We were talking about it during our last segment. At this point, there's no reason for the physical heads of the college football playoff committees to be connected below their mouth with the rest of their heads because they literally talk 360 degrees out of all sides of their mouth at all times. And they've decided that they're always going to keep the rich being rich and the poor being poor, and they're going to find ways to do it every week. And Gary Barta this week said a statement that I literally couldn't believe. He actually said, just forget about what you saw on the field when he was talking about Michigan versus Michigan State and how Michigan is ranked ahead of Michigan State. And I saw that someone, I think it was Bruce Feldman, had written an article basically talking about multiple sporting events where why don't you just give the championship to this team, even though they didn't win on the field, we all knew they were better. So it doesn't really matter. Citing Georgia over Alabama in 2017, Patriots over the Falcons when they blew that 28-3 lead. Yeah, I mean, Auburn didn't lose to Mississippi State. They were better. So there's no, it doesn't matter. Auburn gets the W on that because they were the better team. And so Joe and I decided for our locker room talk, we're going to come up with examples of teams that won the championship based on the college football playoff ideology, aka they were better, their stats were better, therefore they're the better team, and we'll put them in the playoff. Doesn't matter if they lost to the other team. Our locker room talk is always brought to you by our fine sponsor, Beach Ball Properties. It actually did get kind of hot today. I don't know if the weekend's going to look like that, but maybe you get a rare kind of fall beach day with Hunter and Ginger down in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. If you want to get a beach getaway and go have a ball at the beach, give Hunter and Ginger a call, Beach Ball Properties. All right, Joe, the first one that I have, and you and I have talked about on this show many times because I thought it was one of the coolest college basketball teams I've ever seen. And it wasn't the beginning of the myth of John Calipari as this amazing coach, but it was his first time coming back since he had been at UMass and failed as an NBA coach. He assembled just an ungodly amount of talent in Memphis. Now, Memphis didn't play a whole lot of teams, but every time they played anybody, they just destroyed them. And it was just this amazing compilation of street ball. They just out-bullied everybody they played. They out-rebounded them. They were bigger than them, stronger than them, more athletic. But they only had one problem, Joe. They couldn't make free throws. And, ultimately every team they played, they were so much better than that it never really came back to fight them until they played Kansas. And this is not your Kansas that we usually think of where you have like 8 different NBA All-Stars on it. They had one player that played for the Heat that I struggle to even think of his name right now that was pretty good, and that was kind of the extent of the talent they had on this team. But when you look at this Memphis team, Derrick Rose, Gardner Johnson, all these players across the board, Dorsey, that was looked like he was a football player. Like he looked like he had football pads on his body. He was so huge. And Memphis was like men against boys when they played this Kansas team. They were so much better than them. But unfortunately, when they go like 10 of 40 from the free throw line, I know it's probably not that bad, but it sure felt like it. And they ended up losing that game by 2 points on like a last second 3-pointer because they couldn't make a free throw. Well, you know what, Joe? In Gary Barta's ideology and the way the college football playoff looks at it, I look at the stats of the season. They lost 1 game all year. Kansas lost like 10. It wasn't even one of the better Kansas teams. And, free throws, whatever. We can look past that one stat. And they were the better team. So, you know what? I just crowned them 2008 men's basketball national championship. Goes to the Memphis Tigers. Give Calipari that second ring.
Give it to him retroactively right now.
Retroactive ring, yeah. It's just like Alabama claiming those national championships 50 years later. Boom, throw one for Memphis.
I love it. And the other thing I remember about that Kansas team versus Memphis, like of the Final Four teams that year, they were by far the worst one.
Oh, yeah. Mario Chalmers. That's the only player on that Kansas team that played in the NBA.
Yeah, they had him, and he was the one that hit that big 3-pointer. And outside of that, you had North Carolina that was with Tyler Hansbrough, Wayne Ellington, Ty Lawson. They won the national title the next year. And then UCLA was in the Final Four that year, and they had Kevin Love and company. And so this was just a loaded Final Four when you factor in Derrick Rose and Memphis. And so, yeah, it definitely made sense, to retroactively award it to Memphis.
That's right. Yeah, Memphis deserves that one based on the stats. Just forget what you saw on the hard court, Joe.
Well, staying in that theme of John Calipari coach teams, I'll throw out one more for my first one, and that is Kentucky men's basketball in 2015. They started out the season, 38-0, went all the way to the semifinals and played a Wisconsin team, that had some stars. They, of course, had Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker, and Kaminsky is an NBA player. But at the same time, Kentucky was just an embarrassment of riches. You had Karl Anthony Towns. You had the Harrison twins. You had Willie Cauley-Stein. Just so many players that were so good. And everybody was talking about how this is the best college basketball team in the last 30 or 40 years assembled. And so, yeah, they lost to Wisconsin, but based on the talent on that Kentucky team, and I would also add on that you had Devin Booker, a superstar in the NBA, that did not even start for that Kentucky team. That's how good they were. Yeah, so absolutely, I'm going to say that Wisconsin loss was a fluke, and retroactively, let's give Kentucky that 40-0 national title season.
That's right, man. They deserved it. They were the best college basketball team ever. Gonzaga didn't get it done. But you know what? We'll just take away that loss for Kentucky. Man, this is good days for Calipari, Joe. He went from having one national championship to 3. I think that's even more than Rick Pitino had. So, man, Calipari's just going up. He's like a top 5 all-time college basketball coach now in the span for the last 10 minutes.
He's suddenly a big subscriber of the Dan and Joe Sports Show.
Yes, yeah, that's right. You can like our show, Cal. We like you. Don't worry about it. But yeah, seriously, you looked at that. NBA talent across the board. He actually had some guys that were kind of veterans, and that Kentucky team was just world beaters. And unfortunately, they ran into that Bo Ryan, Wisconsin, grinded out style of basketball that pretty much is the same way they play football. And, Joe, that was just a style thing, and we can forget about the style. Forget about what happens with a weird style playing Kentucky basketball. Kentucky's obviously better. Ring up another one for Calipari. All right, Joe, the next one that I have is we talk about great teams in college football. Was the Alabama team in 2020 the greatest college football team? Was it the LSU team in 2019? All great. But, Joe, I think that everyone thinks that the greatest college football team ever were the 2001, 2002 Miami Hurricanes teams. We're talking about like NFL players everywhere. Willis McGahee. You had Dorsey at quarterback. You had a linebacker. I'm trying to think of his name. He played for a long time. Sean Taylor at linebacker. You had him. You had I think that Ed Reed was on that team.
Yep.
It was just loaded like across the board. The guy who played for the Patriots for a long time, defensive tackle. You know what I'm talking about?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Really, really good though. But the point is, it just goes on and on and on. I'm not even doing it justice what I'm saying right now. These Miami teams were awesome. And, of course, that first year they won the national championship and looked great. They came back the second year in the 2001 season and just obliterated everybody they played. And they played an Ohio State team in the championship game that had barely beaten everybody. It was kind of like the 2010 Auburn team. I think Ohio State had like 7 or 8 one-possession games, and they just kept like getting it done and getting the wins. And I think they came into that game something like a 13.5-point underdog. It was crazy. And they just hung with Miami. And they go to overtime, and then all of a sudden Miami beats them because they stop them. But then 30 seconds later, this mystery flag comes out, and you get pass interference called against Miami. Now, if I were a Hurricanes fan and then I liked Miami, I thought the U was the coolest thing when I was a kid. I was so mad about that flag because he just comes out of nowhere. And it did feel like the game had been over for like 30 seconds. You even saw people celebrating. And then this flag comes out. They call pass interference. Ohio State gets the touchdown. They ultimately win it. And they spoiled what was the coronation of the greatest college football team of all time. Well, Joe, didn't I just say this is the greatest college football team of all time? It's the greatest college football team of all time We can look at the stats. We can look at what they did in the draft. And forget what you saw on the field. They're so much better than Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State got lucky. They got a call from the refs. That's the kind of thing Ohio State gets, right? Let's ignore that. And obviously, this Hurricanes team, back-to-back national championships. Suddenly, Larry Coker is not the worst coach to ever win a national championship. He's the worst coach to ever win 2 national championships.
No, that's great. No, I think you build a great case for it because, I mean, you talk about all the talent for Miami. About the only player I remember that was really significant for Ohio State was Maurice Clarett.
Right. He was so significant that he tried to go to the NFL right as a freshman. Didn't really work for him. And he hated it now. Like you know what's sad, though, Joe? What he could have done now is he could have just opted out for 2 seasons.
You're right. He absolutely could. No, I think that's a great one. And, yeah, I mean, you look back at, a lot of people say that may be the biggest collection of talent in college football history. So definitely, call them the national champions for 2002. Staying in the realm of football, Dan, I want to go to the NFL. And obviously, I think this is no surprise the team I'm going with. The 2007 New England Patriots, 16-0 in the regular season. Tom Brady, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, the defense, Teddy Bruschi, all those guys. They just went through the regular season just so smoothly. They had a couple of hiccups where it was close games against, I think, the Ravens, and then also the Giants win in the regular season was pretty close. It was like a 3 or 4 point game, but they got it done, and they did it impressively. And Brady wins the MVP. I mean, at the point that you have, for the first time ever, a team go undefeated through 16 games in an NFL schedule, to me, that's enough to warrant just a declaration of the championship trophy. Don't even have the postseason. So I'm retroactively going to go back and say that Roger Goodell should have handed the New England Patriots the Lombardi Trophy after they defeated the Giants on the last day of the regular season and just call it quits on everything else. No point in even having a postseason.
Yeah, I think maybe they could have, had a Campbell suit present the Super Bowl. It was called the Super Bowl, and you had the rest of the teams competing for that while you go ahead and just give the silver trophy to the Patriots. I mean, they were so much better. I mean, that was a once-in-a-lifetime catch. I mean, come on. That guy, David Tyree, caught like 5 passes in his entire career, and he somehow put that against complete luck, Joe. It's just an absolute fluke. I mean, the Giants were like, 10-6 in the regular season, and they just, had a defense. They didn't have Tom Brady. They didn't have all these superstars. They didn't have Randy Moss, Teddy Bruschi. Nah, that ain't cool. And you know what, Joe? To go back and not talk about just this Patriots team, this Miami team, let me read you these players. Ken Dorsey, Jeremy Shockey, great Saints player right here on this 2001 Miami Dolphins team. How about Andre Johnson? Really, probably one of the top wide receivers in the NFL for 7 or 8 seasons. Pretty huge guy. Oh, let's go some more Saints. How about Jonathan Vilma, who, by the way, is a very good announcer right now. Of course, the linebacker on the Saints' lone Super Bowl 2009. Of course, we mentioned Willis McGahee. Oh, how about another good running back, Joe? The last time I think that anyone cared about the Redskins ever, Clinton Portis. Remember him? It's another guy that had on this team. Oh, here we go. Here's the Patriot that I was trying to think of. Vince Wilfork.
Oh, my goodness.
Wait.
Wasn't Frank Gore on that team, too?
I was just about to say, the ageless wonder at running back, Frank Gore, was on this football team. And, that's right, Ed Reed, who I mentioned earlier. Bryant McKinney, that's a really solid offensive lineman. At corner, they had Antrell Roll. That guy was pretty awesome for the Giants for a long time. And then, of course, Sean Taylor. All right, Joe, what did I read off? 9 NFL All-Stars right there, Pro Bowlers? There's no way that my Ohio State won that national championship. Chalk it up for Larry Coker.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Miami based on that evidence right there. You got to give it to the New England Patriots based on the record-breaking 16-0 season.
That's right, Joe. There's definitely, that's the way we need to look at these things. You can go back and you can have so many national championships. And you know what, Joe? The last one I'm going to put out there is the 2004 Auburn Tigers. I've been fighting for their championship for so long. under this Gary Barta look at, they didn't have to play Ohio State they didn't have to play USC or Oklahoma. They beat 5 top 10 teams. They had 4 first-round draft picks: Jason Campbell, Ronnie Brown, Carnell Williams, and of course the cornerback Carlos Rogers. And you know what? They beat everybody they had to. And looking at the stats, aka they had twice as many top 10 wins as USC or Oklahoma. And what happened to Oklahoma in that game? Auburn gets a national championship. Don't even worry about it. Forget what happened on the field, or in this case, what didn't happen on the field, and just give it to Auburn.
I like that tie-in of what did not happen on the field. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And if you don't give it to them that year, you could pick another year where where there was no question at all that they would have been the better team. Just kind of pick and choose. It's like, maybe you were unlucky if you're the Utah Jazz and you had to play in the era of Michael Jordan. Let's just give the Jazz like the 2002 championship. You know what I mean? Just kind of pick and choose the eras. You can do that as well.
Absolutely. So, this is a whole new plethora of championships to be added to all these guys who maybe never had one or they only had one. And you can just look back and give it to them. And hey, the Saints right now, they didn't lose that game to the Rams. We can, of course, argue all you want about that targeting call that wasn't called, the pass interference that wasn't called. Well, now that we're looking at the stats, obviously that Saints team would have beaten the Patriots. They wouldn't have put up that anemic performance that Sean McVay's team did against the Patriots, and probably the worst Patriots team to win the Super Bowl. Saints would have beaten them and gotten Drew Brees' second ring, probably a swan song. So therefore, under forget what you had that would happen on the field and looking at the stats and who's better, Saints won the Super Bowl in 2018. It's all good.
No, absolutely. I would love that too, to be able to change some of these results. Our Atlanta Braves would probably have like 5 World Series titles.
They wouldn't have just been the team of the 90s. That would have been like, the team of the 1900s if they had done that right then. All right, Joe, we'll come back. We're going to talk about some of these big games we got coming up this weekend. And, of course, you can like all of our episodes, like our Facebook fan page. You can listen to all of our episodes on Spotify. And, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Dan and Joe Sports Show YouTube channel. As always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.